Alright, so one of my favorite things to do with polymer clay is to sand and buff it to a beautiful glassy shine. And I'm going to show you on this bead that I created. I've already done a little bit of sanding on it. I want to explain to you about the Sculpey sandpapers. The Sculpey variety pack has all the papers you need. It has 400, 600, 800, and 1000 grit. The lower the number, the coarser it is, so you always want to go from the coarsest to the finest when you're sanding. And the Sculpey sandpaper is wet dry, which means that you always really want to use it in water. And I've been soaking these for about 10 minutes now. You can see that the edges are starting to curl up, and that means that they are soaked and they're ready to go. The reason why you soak the sandpaper is because you want this backing to be very flexible. You don't want it to be hard and crunchy like it would be if it was dry, because you could actually sand a little bit of a scratch into your clay. So the process for doing this is very simple. I'm starting with the 400 and taking my bead and just pressing it on the surface. You can see where some of that white is actually some of the polymer clay that we're sanding off. So you want to sand with the 400 until it's nice and smooth. You can just kind of feel that. It's one thing that's nice too about using the wet sandpaper is when your fingerprints are wet, they're very sensitive. So you can kind of keep sanding that until it's nice and smooth. And then the 600 and the 800 and the 1000, you'll just give it a few swipes with each one. That's 800, or that was 600. This is 800. You can see each time you're actually taking off a much smaller amount of material, and it seems like there's a lot more sand, but that's because it's finer. What you're taking off is being sanded down and finer. You can kind of put it in the water and rinse it off a little. And use the 1000 grit. Nice and smooth. See how you can see all those decals and everything are popping out, so you're ready to buff now. Okay, so now we're going to buff our bead, and I'm showing you my face because I want you to see that I'm wearing safety glasses. You should always wear safety glasses when you're using any piece of electric equipment like this for buffing. Alright, so now I am going to show you the very simple process. I have this Fordham buffing machine, and that one has a variable speed, so I'm going to use kind of a medium to low speed. If you have a buffing machine that's from like the big box Home Depot or something like that, the less expensive ones usually only have one speed, and you want to be very careful because that one speed is usually very high speed. So the process you're going to use is you're going to hold the bead like this, and you're going to hold it tightly, but you're going to press it very lightly against the buff. So that's kind of counterintuitive to your brain, so I say to myself all the time, it's kind of my mantra for buffing, hold tightly, press lightly. So now I'm just going to turn it on, and I'm going to show you that I use this bottom part of the buff here, because then the buff is spinning this way, so then if I do lose control of it, it'll spin away from me and not towards me. That's the plan anyway. The plan is actually to never lose control of it. So you can see I'm just barely pressing it against the tip of the cotton wheel. You want to use an unstitched muslin or cotton wheel. Muslin is cotton actually. And just press it in very lightly. You want to keep it always moving, and hold it as much as you can with your hand. You can see how it's starting to already buff up a little bit. So just keep it moving the whole time. You want to work on different sections of the bead also. I'm only buffing one side because I'm going to show you how one side looks buffed and one side looks with the gloss coat on it, so that you can tell the difference. Obviously this is a little more time intensive, but I think it gives a prettier finish, and it's also a permanent finish because you're not putting a coating on there. You're just actually buffing the polymer clay itself. So as you can see, I just keep moving it. I'm holding it very tightly. I'm really pinching those edges and also supporting it underneath with my other hand. And not pushing it very hard. It seems like if you would push it in harder, it would buff faster. It doesn't really work like that. What you actually can do is buff some scratches or other rough marks into it instead of just polishing the surface. Okay, so I probably spent maybe 5 minutes buffing the one side of this bead, and I just want to show you, I hope it comes through on the video, how shiny and smooth it looks. And just to give you a contrast for that, I did paint the other side with the gloss glaze. You can see it's not quite as shiny. You can see a little bit of the brush marks on there, even though I was very careful putting it on. So it is an alternative if you don't want to buy the buffing machine, or if you just want to do it the fastest way. Obviously buffing a bead this size takes about 10 minutes and putting a gloss glaze on takes about 30 seconds. So that is the difference between buffing and glazing.